3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, where we explore strategies for training, competing, and well-being shared through experiences from some of the sharpest minds in the fitness space. Now, welcome your host, Micah Shoemaker.
So it's Rising Sun, Maryland. Have you ever heard of it?
No. The only place in Maryland I've heard of is where Brandon lives, just because he's told me. But so outside of that,
Okay,
no.
so
We're like 20
we
minutes.
live. It's yeah, I'm not far from Brandon. I love it here because it's so easily accessible to like all kinds of cool stuff. But it's a very closed-minded area. Is probably the best way to put it.
The difference
So
from where
we don't
I
get a
live,
lot of options.
yeah, Micah, the difference from where I live and the 20-minute drive to Aaron is about 200 years of aggression.
What?
You cross
Yeah, it's a time warp.
cross this bridge and it's a time warp.
Why is that?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't want to dive into it because I'm sure a lot of local people are going to listen to this and then it's going to directly affect my business. But
Fair enough.
yeah, it's crazy. I will say this. I owned my first CrossFit affiliate across that way, so I can speak on that.
Aaron, what's your perspective on it? Since you live there, I feel like you can talk about it, right?
I love it here. It's it could be a challenge if you if you can't open your mind to understand that they don't see it besides their own perspective. I love it because I love changing people's minds. It's kind of like my favorite thing to do, like prove them wrong in a way. But it's frustrating and it's hard to gain. Like I mean, Brandon can relate to. Like even when we brought CrossFit, like I think we might have been one of the first to bring CrossFit to Cecil County.
Aaron might be one of 3 black human beings on that in his town.
Yeah, not exaggerating. Yeah, I don't think they're racist. I don't like. I mean, obviously there's some, but most people who legitimately are racist are coming out and about and commingling with the community. I just think they're very sheltered to different ways of life.
Yeah,
So I don't fault them for their ignorance, and it's not the entire group. I mean, they've been super welcoming to me, and every idea I've had tons of supports. Like I'm just out here, dreaming things up, and they support it fully. It's just hard to get them to buy in to things outside of their norm. Like change is scary to a lot of people over here. Like even like with me out pursuing my dream, so to speak, by owning an indoor sports facility for kids, everyone thinks I'm nuts. Like, you can't do this. It's not going to work. It's like, stop telling me. Why would you put your limits on me? Like, I'm not you. You can't do it because you're scared to break the cycle and break the routine. I don't live in the same little matrix as the rest of these people now. But I mean, I used to, but I'm on to just a different wavelength, I think. And I don't think there's a right or wrong, just different.
Okay, so all right, I'm gathering context here. So you have a place where I'm assuming these kids up until like I don't know 16, 17, 18 can come and like it's like a sportsplex of sorts. Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah, it's we have indoor basketball, baseball, with the batting cage. We do football training, but I call it Pops culture, and it's really like I try to just think about everything that I needed when I was a kid that would help me be successful sooner is what I tried to provide to them. That way, the things that I'm trying to teach them, I learned, 25, 30. If I can give it to them and get them to understand it, from 13 to 16, and when it's such an influential age, like they're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of me and others success-wise, and not just success in you joining the workforce and becoming a cog in the wheel, like chasing their passion, their dream, and understanding like sometimes you got to go work a bullcrap job, but don't stop working for your goals too. Like it's trying to create that balance because I think we've gotten so far away from anyone pursuing like what they believe in. So like whatever these kids are into, whether it's art, sports, music, I don't care what, like, even if they're a gamer, these parents come to me all the time like, oh, he just wants to play video games. Gamers tend to turn into pretty successful people because they're smart. They're and that's the way of the future. So I'm like, if he's into gaming, like support it. Get him to be the best gamer he can be because there's money in that. Like don't just because it's not our way as parents that to our idea of success, we shouldn't inhibit what they're into. We should
Mm.
pump gas them up so they can pursue a career in gaming, whether it's building games. There's so many avenues to make money. Like, why do we have to, like, if they're not out there digging ditches at 16, it's like, oh, they're lazy. No, there's just easier ways to make money. They're not lazy, they're smart.
Mm.
And I think that's what this younger generation's been labeled as lazy. They're just making, I mean, you see it every day on YouTube. Kids are making millions of dollars TikToking. That's not lazy. Like the grind of creating content is tough,
I
and you
agree.
have to be good at it. And you have to be consistent. It's a lot harder than going out and just digging a hole and putting wire or something in it. But I think it's easier to discredit someone than try to understand. I'm trying to get, and in this area, like we previously talked about, it's big time in this area. But I'm trying to shift the focus, like support these kids more, whatever their passion is, and don't push our traumas and insecurities onto them because it's hard enough as is with what they have to do, like growing up through COVID and all the other nonsense, 24/7 bullying. It's a different time to be young than and we're not even that old. Like I'm 37, probably the oldest one here, but these kids are going through it. Like the level of I was reading some article, like the level of stress and anxiety that they're under at a young age is equivalent to what would institutionalize you in like the 70s. Like
Mm.
that's something to be taken serious that I don't think enough parents and adults do. Like we're hard on these kids. We're so quick to discredit them, but they're pretty sharp. They're just different.
Mm.
To go back to the social media thing, I used the analogy the other day. I was like, social media or what you have on your phone is the equivalent to your parents looking at the newspaper when you were younger. And
Yeah,
I remember many a days of my dad just sitting there at the fucking kitchen table or in a chair reading the newspaper or anybody for that matter. And because it's not a hardback physical copy of something, they're now
yeah,
judging of the way that you're consuming your information. But you know, it's the way of the future. Gary Vee has some really good
yeah. His
standing,
insights on are dope.
some pretty good stuff. But
Yeah, like, and we're so I have, I mean, on this side of the pond, so to speak, where I live, like, there's a lot of parents who like refuse their kids technology, and I've seen it. Like before got sick, I worked in school systems, and the kids who are deprived of technology at a young age, like for example, my son, he could turn on an iPad put in my PIN code by the time he was 2. So I mean, we didn't use technology as a babysitter, but actually, that's a lie. Every parent who lets their kid use technology at some point uses it for a babysitter because it's
mhm.
clutch. Kids can be annoying. There's no better. Like, go watch this 20-minute YouTube video while I just take this nap. Like, that's just if you don't let yourself do that as a parent, like you're only hurting yourself. But at the same time, by not getting kids access to technology, they get to school in kindergarten. All of their classmates can, get on the computer, log in, do all this other stuff. While little Susie, who never got access to the internet because her dad wanted her to raise chickens, isn't up to speed. So they may know how to read and write, but they don't know how to utilize technology. And in this world, technology's first. You don't need to learn how to read and write because you can get your phone to do that for you. I watch my son; he's got a reading book, and he hasn't read a single word. He puts on a YouTube video, opens his book, and just stares at it and listens to this lady read his book to him. And I can't be mad at him because he's got an A in the class. So I'm like, I can't like, what's my bargaining chip here? You need to read this book because why? Your grades are good.
Mm.
Utilize your resources is what I tell them. If you got access to Google and you don't know the answer, why aren't you Googling it?
Don't hate the player, hate the game, baby.
Seriously, like use it to your advantage.
I
So something
go ahead.
something that Aaron's not going to tell you, and just to give some context to this whole thing, um, before I even opened my first CrossFit gym back in 2012, Aaron and I worked together at the rehab facility that I went to, and then later went back and worked at, and we would go in every day, and through the process of him and I working together, we had this idea that we were going to open a CrossFit gym,
Mm.
and so he's actually who I opened my first CrossFit gym with, and
Yeah, what a
we
time.
yeah, dude, and we would go into work every day back then, and then they had this thing where I could leave campus if I had to go get like resources for this PT facility that we worked in, and there was a ping pong table in there, and everybody would come in and play ping pong all the time. And so every day, Aaron and I would say, "Hey, we've got to go buy ping pong balls from Walmart."
Every day.
But we'd really leave, go buy some equipment, coach a class at the gym that we were building, and then come back to work, and then eventually just both quit
We did
and
that for a better part of a year.
and then
Like, it was a smooth little hustle.
yeah, open the gym, and then it just Aaron and I had the place for a while, and then he ended up getting really sick, which I'm sure we'll get into in this podcast, but had some crazy life
Yeah.
stories, and
It's been a ride, that's for sure.
now
But yeah,
we're
like in literally like that
page.
whole CrossFit, like starting out and getting into CrossFit, where like I think we started doing like little boot camps, and then when we forgot our like CrossFit legitimately like saved my life. And like I didn't even go hard with CrossFit. I hated it. Hated working out. But it made me good at sports, so I would do it. But it literally like my doctor straight up told me after that first transplant, said if I wasn't training and the athlete that I was, my heart wouldn't have been able to handle what I was going through. So like and they owed it like it was like CrossFit. It was pretty wild. Like they didn't even want to give me just like a quick little story. Like they didn't even want to give me my first transplant because I had cancer. And when you have cancer, you're not eligible to get a transplant until they know for sure the cancer is gone. But my urologist was arguing in a completely different network of doctors. Like he was in a different system, arguing with my transplant surgeon, saying like, this kid's in shape. Like he's only 30 years old. He's in shape. Like I took care of that cancer. And if the cancer comes back, he'll beat it. Like he had to go to war for me to even get put on the operating table to give me a chance to live. But it's because of like when I went to saw him for my cancer surgery, like I was, tall, skinny, but in like really good shape. So like it saved my life. And it my doctor seeing it was able to go to war for me to save my life a second time because I was able to beat cancer because of I was in shape and it never the type of cancer I had was like very aggressive, but because of the shape I was in, it stayed pretty dormant. And then it got me again when he had to go to war for me. Like he'll survive this transplant. And the doctor's like we have the audio of it, and the doctor said like we're gonna do this surgery, but he's probably not gonna make it. But
Oh my God.
here I am, 7 years later, the same jackass I was the day I went on that table.
So, all right, I gotta. I mean, you just gave me a lot to work with here. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
my bad.
No, it's amazing. No, it's amazing. This is one of the reasons I was excited about having you on. But I want to take our time here. This is like a fine wine. It's gotta age a little bit. So,
Oh yeah.
okay. So I want to go back. That's right. We got all the time in the world. So I want to go back to you were working in the rehab center with Brandon, and I just want to get this correct. You guys would tell whomever was in charge, hey, we have to go get resources. We have to go get, in this case, ping pong balls. You would go to quote-unquote Walmart. And truly, in the meantime, you were going, let's make sure I get this right. You were going to your CrossFit gym that you guys own jointly, and you would coach classes at your CrossFit gym. Is that did I catch that? I got all that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like when once we got rolling, we'd get up and do a 5 a.m. class before we had to be at the rehab for work. So we would coach 5 a.m., grab breakfast, go to the rehab, run a morning PT group with the pain specialist. We had to like stretch them out and do everything in the morning. Then we'd go back to our little spot. We knew the men of the group, the rehab would come in one time and the women would come in another. We'd be like, okay, the men will be back here at 11:30. We got to hustle, run our 9 o'clock class, get ping pong balls because you got to have the product that you're going to get. So we always made sure we had ping pong balls, and then we had to get back. So then we would run the men group and like, okay, now the women come in at this time. All right, Aaron, you stay back this time and run this group. I'm going to go run our 12 o'clock class. Or it'd be, okay, Brandon, I'll go take 12 o'clock class at the gym. You stay back. Like we would just, sometimes it'd be both of us, sometimes it'd be one of us, but we ran the business while running another fitness facility. It was just, really, we were just in sync and like, I don't know if we're lucky or talented, but I'm going to go with talented because we never gotten any kind of anything for it. Yeah, like we ran it to the flaw. And the best part of it is the people at the facility loved us. Thought we were incredible.
It was cool. Yeah, it was a fun time. Mind you, when we say rehab, this is a drug and alcohol rehab facility. And we talked in the first podcast about me being sober, so this isn't like anything that we need to go into. But
Yeah.
when I first got sober, I had such a criminal record that I couldn't get a job anywhere. So I was so much banking on coming back and working there because my history pretty much was a great resume in order for me to get a job there. So I ended up getting a job there, and then I got into fitness, and they were rebranding and rebranching out what they were doing. So they put me in charge of like the physical fitness side of pain management patients. So you'd have people that were addicted to pain management, pain pills that would come in due to chronic pain. And then when you take the pills away, obviously they still have pain. So we would work with physical therapists and myself and Aaron to work with these patients to have, movement and exercise be the cure or the fix to their pain. And so that was kind of our job at the time. And through that, we had kind of our own office and our own building that we were in. And my boss at the time was so overwhelmed with everything else going on that he paid no mind to what we were doing. So Aaron and I would, Aaron, I was like, yo, I got a guy, I need an assistant. I knew you guys need to hire Aaron. So then Aaron got hired, and we were like, yeah, man, like we'll rock. So we'd leave and
we
back
did.
and yeah, so it was cool. It was a good time.
And outside of running, our own place out of it, working there was one of my favorite places to work. On top of like obviously we got to finagle the system a little bit, but I think, that was partly because what we like. I like to give myself credit. What we brought to the table, we could handle that. Like it's not. I don't think it's egotistical. I think you should be very proud of your way to maneuver. But it was a really great place to work, and it allowed us, the freedom to do that. But at the same time, like we handled business, and I met some incredible people that I still talk to this day from that place. So it's like it's easy to make it think we're really like sticking it to that place, but we're just
No.
really good at what we did. And it was a place where like they probably would have been mad if we told them though, like they still would have been cool with it because we never dropped the ball. We were just juggling them.
Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah. Don't get me fucked up. That place saved my life. So that's I owe a lot to that facility. So I had a bunch of mixed feelings, right? Like I went through there as a patient, and I obviously have one viewpoint on it. And after working there for a long time and dealing with it, like you end up starting to become a little cynical when it comes to it because without getting too morbid, right? Like the success rate of recovery is less than 5%. And every month you have a different group of 80 people coming in. So you're talking about, I don't know what the numbers are on that, but 80 times 12 is the amount of people that you meet in a year. And getting close to those people or working with those people in that time frame, and then a month later you get a call, hey man, did you hear that so and so overdosed and died? And that's not something that happens once or twice. That's something that happens 60, 70, 80 times that you hear in a short amount of time. You start to become pretty hardened to the reality of it. And I kind of liked the soft, fluffy feeling that I had when I went through it and was like, dude, like recovery's great. Obviously it's worked for me for this amount of time. And I, through that was when I was like, okay, I'm becoming kind of a morbid human being, and I need to find a different avenue to take my career. So Aaron and I just hustled the system, and we're like, look, we'll stay here for a little bit, and we'll utilize the paychecks that we can get while trying to build something different. So,
I mean, in a lot of
I
ways,
mean, it
it's
worked great,
kind
and
of
even we didn't leave them high and dry either.
no, we gave them a new person.
We even found our replacement.
Yeah, we did good.
In a lot of ways, it's really
God's plan,
Yeah, it's really I think American dream in a lot of ways, and you hear so many people talk about it, but it's like the harsh reality, and I'm even in this in my own life right now. It's like the harsh reality of starting your own thing, of doing your own venture, is something that's not, I don't think, talked about a lot. It's what's talked about a lot is how sexy it is, and you should go work for yourself, be your own boss, all this bullshit that you read on the internet, which is great. I think it's in a lot of ways it's a great gaslight for people to be able to do the things that they want to do and have the confidence that sometimes they lack. I'm all for that. However, what's oftentimes not talked about is kind of what you guys just outlined is like, look, it's a real freaking hustle. And not only is it a real freaking hustle, but it's a tremendous amount of risk. It's a tremendous amount of money. And often that money, quote unquote, comes in the form of time at first, but then on the back end, it comes in the form of obviously, money. So it's just, man, it's like I wish more people would talk about that piece of it, because when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, you're like, damn, like this is like this piece of it, this journey piece of it is not really spoken about in the same light that it is to start. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's like
true.
There's like a disconnect there to some extent.
I think the success rate with people starting a business is very similar to the success rate of people trying to get sober. Right?
I agree.
Because it's just like anything. People love the idea of something. People love the idea of it, and when you have an idea or when you look at something, you see it at its most prime form. And when you see business ownership, you think of Gary Vee or Mark Cuban, or you're like, man, that's cool. All I got to do is quit my job, tell my family to fucking suck it. I'm gonna be broke for a little bit, and then I'm gonna own the Mavericks. And it doesn't fucking work that way. So,
No, it does not.
we're talking about the misconception that people still have of me, right? And this podcast needs to be more about Aaron, but I'm celebrating 10 years of owning a CrossFit gym this year.
That's
and
awesome.
it's cool, right? But like, I'm just now getting to the point where I'm not, quote unquote, a slave to my business. And it took that long, and there's the amount of hardships that I had to go through in that time that normally crumble people.
Yeah.
I just was so committed to it because I put my back against a wall and I decided to keep going through it. Aaron was with me. We left the first place.
We bounced around a few times.
We rolled out on a lease, and then I got sued for $12,000 2 months later, and I had to go to court. I had to pay, because I was 23 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I don't want to be here anymore.
We
Fuck
were
this lady.
I think that's where people get screwed up too. People fall in love with the end result when you have to fall in love with the process.
Looking back at the journey,
that's where it gets misconstrued.
It's so crazy because you've got the start that Aaron and I had to everything, and then you have obviously those trials, those tribulations, those things that happen, and that relationship him and I formed has allowed him to go and do what he's doing. It's allowed me to do what I've done. If it wasn't for the things, like, you look back, and hindsight's 20/20 all the time, but you can always see, without getting religious on here, but you can always see that everything kind of happens for a reason. And if it wasn't for CrossFit, I would have never picked up a camera. And I mean, shit, where my life's at now, like, that is my shit. So it's crazy to see how all of that kind of stuff has weaved together and how it all links. And that's a really cool thing to sit down and take a breath sometimes and look at.
I think that's even how me and Brandon, like, we've always stayed in loose contact, but I called him a couple of days ago and I told him, remember when we started our CrossFit journey, I was like, the quote he told me is like, if money was never an issue, what would you do? And like that, Brandon told me that all those years ago. And that stuck with me throughout. And that's how us three being here now started, from that conversation, from that original message Brandon gave to me all those years ago, because I stopped worrying about money and I just started pursuing my dreams and my goals. And now, when I was a kid, my goal was to, be a professional athlete, open up an indoor facility, do basketball, teach kids sports. Obviously I skipped the whole professional athlete thing. For some people will say, lack of ability. I'm just going to say lack of exposure. But I still got to my end goal. And that just further proves, we're just in this universe. And if you do good and you stay the course, you're going to get to where you want to be. But it's about being consistent and, like, you're not being obsessive about getting there in a time frame. Just, chip away at your goals. And before you know it, you're going to get to where you want to be. But I think that's when we become obsessive and, we're like, oh, I didn't make $15,000 this month, I quit. Like, you can't put monetary goals on things if you're doing things based on passion, because the money's never going to match the passion. But that's not why you do it. Like, you do it because you love it. And when you love it, there is no, end success. Because I tell people all the time, if I couldn't pay the bills at Pops, Pops doesn't go away. I do it from my home. I do it outside. We never stop pursuing what we love and what we're passionate about if you're really about it. But I think a lot of people, just like Brandon was saying when he started, like they love the idea of it. They have all these ideas. There's no action. I don't know how to run a business, but I knew I wanted to run a business. And everything that I learned with Brandon, I was able to move differently. So my business has been better. Like I'm gotten better at business, but I'm still terrible at it. But you things happen, you adjust, and you keep moving forward. Like, and I'm sure Brandon can attest to this. I've wanted to quit 1,000 times because it seems like everything's stacked against me, and I'm laying in my bed. I'm not doing it tomorrow. I'm done. Wake up, go right back at it again. And I just think that's where there's no like, and it's funny because our original idea before we became affiliated, no quit fitness was what we did, and that's been what throughout. No matter what is thrown our way, we may take a break, we may fall back, but we don't quit, and that's even how I'm alive today. You know what I mean? Cancer, 2 liver transplants, all kinds of other crazy shit. Brandon saw me walking through the woods taking pictures, 2 years ago. I damn near died out there, but caught my breath, got up, and kept moving. Like we just don't quit. Like if you don't quit, you can't fail. Yeah, Brandon tried to kill me. I don't think he was aware of my situation, but it was a pretty scary day. I don't even think I knew.
But
I was pretty ignorant to my health at that time.
Man, wow. I love CrossFit for a lot of reasons, but I think it's a proxy in a lot of ways to life. One of them being what you just brought up is that, there's no doubt that when you enter into a CrossFit workout, I don't care what type of CrossFit workout it is. It could be all body weight. It doesn't matter. When you enter into a CrossFit workout, you are without question signing up for pain, discomfort, and adversity. There's no question about it. And I think that it's a proxy for life in a lot of ways and how it plays out. And I think that if there's one reason that I've continued to train over the years, and everyone's goals change, right? As you, I don't know, at least for me, each year that I've gotten older, the definition of what I wanted to achieve has gotten a little bit different. It's become, I think, in a lot of ways, and I think as looking back on this, I'm happy about this. It's become more refined, and I think that's a positive. I think that's a positive situation, right? Now, here's the thing that I mentioned is when you're going through these workouts and you're facing this adversity, it's I think I don't know who exactly said it, if it was David Goggins or if it was, I don't know. But the point is this. It's like hard things really calibrate you, I think. Hard things are almost like a compass for life, because sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, we get a little too comfortable sometimes and things get a little too easy. And when they get a little bit too comfortable and a little bit too easy, we tend not to push as hard towards the thing that we're meant to do in this, or on this planet, or, and I think that I don't know if any of you have ever listened to this podcast. I highly recommend it. It's called The Science of Happiness, and how they break down happiness is vastly different than I've ever heard it broken down before. It's not this Tony Robbins BS. Nothing wrong with Tony Robbins, but it's you know what I'm saying. It's much more than just positive affirmation and pursue your goals and rah rah rah. Like it's a really scientific approach to happiness, and like understanding the nuts and bolts of why you're here, and ultimately that the happiest people on planet Earth, their purpose revolves around other people and not themselves. And I think that's not a I don't think that's happenstance. I think there's a reason for that. And so when I hear you talk about even at a very young age, which I find fascinating, that you already had this idea in your head that, hey, I want to open this facility to give kids something that maybe I didn't have. That fascinates me. And it kind of brings me to the question of, are great leaders born, or are they made? Or is it a combination of both? Because I find that fascinating that at a young age, you were already thinking that, right?
I think it's in us. I think everyone has the capabilities to be a leader, but I think it just depends on how you respond to the adversity, or if you even are exposed to adversity, because there's a lot of people who don't get to, they never really, like, I think rock bottom and it's corny, but it's the best place to build from. And but that comes from, you have to own it. You have to own your rock bottom, and I think that's where a lot of people screw up at, is we're not honest with ourselves. And my growth, in every, even in my life, my personal life, but mentally, physically, and everything, my growth as a person, even as my business, didn't start until I started being real with myself. I was successful. I was doing things, but I was spinning wheels.
Mm.
The days that I started, and when I was at my worst and I was just laid up in the hospital during COVID, couldn't have visitors, wanted to die, going through this shit, I started just being real with myself. And then when I was breaking down myself and crying out of my own self pity, and I'll never forget this moment. I was sitting there with my a physical therapist. I just got done another surgery. I was 115 pounds. At 6'4", 115 pounds does not look good. For the first time in months, I sat up in my hospital bed and I looked down at my legs, and my legs were so skinny. All I could, like, literally, like, I was just bones. And I looked down and I just broke down and crying. And I was like, the guy was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "This isn't me. Like, I'm not just a skinny, like, falling apart piece of shit. Like, I'm a fucking athlete." Like, those were my words. Like, I'm a fucking athlete. And I should not be going through this. But he's like, "It's not your fault. Like, I was like, I get it. Like, I know it's not my fault, but this isn't my life. This isn't like," and before that moment, I accepted, being 115 pounds, walking with a cane and just sleeping all day. I accepted it. But I was like, "No, like, I'm not doing this." He's like, "All right, well, let's do some sit and stands and we'll pace it." He's like, "Just give me 5." And, like, I was like, "Okay." And then before you look, I did 15. And I was like, every time I got presented with it, and that changed my entire outlook in that day, like, and changed my life, because it no longer was I, like, feeling sorry for myself. I was just like, okay, we're getting over this. And that's been the mindset ever since. Anytime something comes against me negatively, it's not, I don't even spend a half a second worrying about the problem. What's the solution? Like, let's fix this shit when we're on it. Like, I'm not wasting any more time in self pity, worrying about the problem. And that goes for every situation now. It's like, okay, assess the problem, see it. All right, let's get through it. And if I know I can't work to a solution on my own, I don't worry about it, because I've wasted so much time focusing on things I have no control over. And I think that's where people's stresses and anxieties come from the most, is we're so obsessed with things that we're powerless to.
Mm.
But once you realize how powerless we are in the grand scheme of things, like, literally, like, we are powerless. Every negative thing that happened to me, like, health wise, was beyond my control.
Mm.
They don't know why my liver failed. The type of cancer I got was, my doctor he's been doing these surgeries for 30 years. He's done it on 3 people in his entire year, like, all of his practice, under the age of 40. I was the only person he's ever seen it get this type of cancer at 30. And of the 3 people, including myself, 2 of them committed suicide. So I'm the last one standing of all the people he's had who's had this surgery,
Holy
at a young age.
shit.
And, like, and to think that everyone else committed suicide was real heavy. And I'd be lying if I told you it never crossed my mind, because at my darkest, like, I was like, this sucks. Like, but I just, with having kids, and like, I couldn't ever take my own life, but it's crossed my mind. But I got to thinking, like, you know, maybe that's why I had my kids young, because they knew I was going to lose. The type of cancer I got took a very important part of being a man.
Mm.
The majority of it from me. Thankfully, I'm half black, so I had a little bit to lose, but it still sucked, like, losing that part of me.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
amazing.
so it's like I just, once I started understanding, like, I'm powerless to these things. I'm powerless to the sickness. I'm powerless, but, sitting here laying in this bed and crying about it ain't doing me any good. So I just started. I never skipped a beat. Like, I was always coaching. I'd be on the field with my cane, and these kids were being lazy in baseball, and I couldn't sit up on my own. And I dropped down and tried to do a burpee. At 110 pounds, throwing up every 2 minutes with no feeling in my left leg. And, like, it took me every bit of 3 minutes to complete an entire burpee. I couldn't jump because I physically couldn't when I got up. But
Mm.
I wanted to show these kids, like, these circumstances are beyond my control. But if I'm gonna make you do this shit, I'm doing it with you.
Mm.
And that's what I think why kids and so many people respond to me, because I'm not just telling you go through this hard time, not to go through this mud, or I'm not dragging them through anything. I'm walking with them. And I
Mm.
think that's what helps people the most, is we got to stop looking to lead. Like, I don't want followers, and I tell this to everyone who comes to Pops. Like, I'm not looking for people to follow me. I want you to walk with me. Like, we're side by side, hand in hand, and that way, if you stumble, I'm right next to you to pick you up. You know what I mean? When you're following someone, you could fall and think someone's going to catch you. They don't, and you end up flat on your back. And I
Mhm.
think that's, like, it gives them an analogy and a visual to see. Like, when you're walking with people, you're stronger. When you're walking in a line, not like it's easy to pick you off one by one. You take out the leader, take out the next one, take out the next one. But when you're side by side, you're moving with a stronger force. And I think that's kind of everything that happened to me. I think God put on me because he knew I would be able to flip it and turn it into this. So I think we're all born with the abilities to be leaders. But it depends on the person and their mindset to how they look at it, how they maneuver if they become a leader. Long story short.
No, that was amazing. What type of cancer did you have? Because you said it was very
So
unique.
it's called penile cancer. It's a type of melanoma, but it's on, your man part, your
Yeah.
penis. And so
Holy shit.
they removed 27 layers of skin. That's how deep the cancer was on it, and that took a few inches off the top. And you could visualize, like, could you imagine? Like, I don't know how old you are, but at 30 years old to lose, that, I mean, everything men do is like a pissing contest. If I'm going to be in a pissing contest now, I got to sit down because I physically can't stand up and pee anymore. Like it was a
Holy
pretty
shit.
heavy thing to deal with, at my age, at 30 years old. But then I just like it made me like really rationalize and think like I had kids. Like I had my daughter was born at 20. I wasn't ready to be a parent, but the circumstances I had my daughter, so I dropped out of college, stopped pursuing my dreams to be a parent. But then I look back at it, I had all my kids young because God or the universe or whoever we believe in knew what was going to happen to me in the next 10 years. So it's like, let's get these kids out of the way because in 10 years, I'm going to put something on Aaron that he's not going to be able to have kids anymore. And I need to see how he's going to be able to handle it. So I don't look at things as, as like me being a victim in any of these situations. It's just more of, oh, challenge accepted. You don't think I can handle this? Watch how I'm going to do it. And with that mindset, like, how can you lose? But I think that also it gets stemmed from like originally like the CrossFit side of things. Like you walk in the CrossFit gym, you see that workout, it's like, fuck, man, I don't feel like doing this. You spend the first 5 minutes of your class in your warm up complaining about the workout. But second that timer goes off, you hit it and get it, don't you? And you can do it to the best of your ability, and
That's
you
right.
don't quit till you're done. Even if you're throwing up, you come back and you finish your last rep. And not that like Brandon could attest to this too. Like I hated that shit. I never pushed that hard through the workouts, but it was in my mind. I knew what it was capable of, but I was lazy. Like I just did what I needed to do to be good at my sports. I wasn't a die-hard CrossFitter, but I knew the methodology of it worked. But by getting, hearing that every day and seeing Brandon, seeing other people go through it, like it built my strength up too because I knew I could handle it. Like I hated it, I would like it sucked, but we're gonna do it anyway. So when I woke up and the beeping stopped, the beeping of the machines essentially was the same beep as that timer. It was go time, and that's the way I look at things. Like you hear the beep, then it's time to go. Like stop complaining. It's time to put in the work, and that's it's shaped me, and it's like I don't really do CrossFit at all anymore. But without CrossFit, I don't think I'd be here doing this podcast now.
There was I got a text message just this week. So I had two gyms in North Carolina, Raleigh, and in Cary. And one of the first members, over 5.5 years ago, probably 6 or 7, I can't remember. It's been over 5 years ago. Anyways, that I signed up at the gym. Her name was Jill, and anyways, I just got a text message that she had died from cancer. She has multiple kids, husband. I've met the kids. They came to the gym. Like, I remember like it was yesterday. Like, going through her goals, talking about nutrition, talking about, these are the strength numbers she wanted to hit. And I remember she was so freaking strong, like physically, just so strong. Like it was incredible. And as strong as she was physically, they told me that she would come, right at, like after her chemotherapies, right? Come to the gym and just do what she could, right? And I'll be honest, man, like as strong as she was physically, to see how strong that she was emotionally and mentally and spiritually, honestly, is some of the most inspiring and courageous acts that I've ever seen in my entire life. I have so much respect for that.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine like that.
And the story, that you just told. I mean, it's in my opinion, it's cool to see people lift heavy shit. Don't get me wrong, it's cool. It's cool to see people snatch and clean and jerk, 300, 400 pounds. Like that's dope. But what's really fucking dope is seeing someone go head to head with their own mortality and then beat that shit. Like that to me
And
is
win.
yeah,
Yeah.
and win like that like and though Jill's not with us anymore, in my opinion, she fucking won because I saw the way that she continued to fight, that she continued to strive to live her life and take care of herself despite all of these circumstances being stacked against her. Like that to me has left in my opinion and just an eternal mark, not only myself but the community at large, that she affected so positively every single day. And I hope that those people, and myself included, and I'm sure the people that you've had the opportunity to touch their lives, like they're better because of it. Like they're telling that story on her behalf, and her legacy and the people that she touched and the impact that she have lives far beyond the flesh and bones of who Jill was. And I just think, hearing you tell that story just brought that to mind because it was so fresh, man. And I just can't imagine. I can't imagine being faced with your own mortality and actually, and maybe you can speak to this, and actually having to go head to head with the idea that, hey, there's a chance I'm not here, and I can't imagine my life without me in it. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's makes great sense because it's something that we're all aware of. Like we all know we're going to die eventually,
Yeah.
but we've never not many people get to feel how real that is, if that makes sense. Like literally, like when I my second transplant, when my girlfriend's mom pushed me in the hospital because my son was at a baseball tournament. Um, like she pushed me in that hospital thinking, and with me thinking is also like this is probably the last time we're going to see each other. Like no one thought I was going to live through it. And it's funny. Like I asked my friends, like, like I asked everyone, like, did you guys think I was going to die? Everyone says, yeah.
Wow.
It never, death never crossed my mind. Like I never thought I was going to die, but I wanted to die because it sucked so bad. Many times I remember being on the phone saying I wanted to die. But I think it's when you, when you're, when you have to be like, I think a lot of people that are put in these situations, whether it's cancer and they tell you have 6 months to live or, whatever it is, I think when people were faced with that, it gives them perspective because get to see, your clock ticking down and you want to make the most of it. And, it comes down to the individual. Some people are just going to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait to die. But that's
Mm.
not what it should be. I think it should be kind of how your friend Jill did. Like, he's like, okay, no, like, you give me 6 months, well, I'm going to push it to a year, because I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to do everything right to to beat this. Like, I'm not going to let cancer just slowly eat at me so I die in, 3 months. Like, you tell me 6 months, well, I'm going for 9. And I think that's just, it comes down to the mindset of the individual to if you have what it takes to just push through it. But it's not easy. But when you do that, and like in my case, I got lucky. Like, I mean, I won to the point where I'm almost back to normal too. It makes there's the quality of life afterwards is so enlightening and just I don't want to say divine because that's like too heavenly, but it's close to that because
Mm.
you bop around like you're floating around with some like almost like SpongeBob SquarePants, like you're positive to a point where it's almost toxic because you value every moment in your life so much more because literally like
I
you
love it.
didn't expect another day. Like I look at like Snapchat streaks and I have a couple of streaks with cousins that are like 600 days. What I mean? This is knock on wood, but in the past 7 years, you know, this is the longest streak I've had without being in the hospital, and I have the Snap streak keeps me on tab of that because I started my streak the day I left the hospital.
Oh, that's
So
so
it's crazy to
awesome.
think for the first time in 7 years, like I almost have 2 years completely not being in the hospital. When
Wow.
that first five after my first transplant, I was admitted in the hospital at least a week every month for 5 years, like just in and out of the hospital. It was miserable, and it's just like every day is just like literally the best day of my life, and it's only because I'm alive. The beauty of it is like I try to like I hear so many complaints from people And like I just tell, and I'm not like I refuse to bite my tongue. So if I hear someone bitching about something that's meaningless, I'm telling them. And that just like to be able to like put this perspective on other people, like our problems, especially if you live in America, your problems aren't that bad.
Mm.
And with the internet, you could see how many people are out there really going through it. Like how many times have, and this is what keeps me on. Like I can't remember a day where I didn't eat. You know what I mean? We take that for granted because the majority of this world does not eat every day. But we're complaining about Joe Biden raising our gas prices. We're complaining about all this shit. Does it suck? Hell yeah, it sucks. I'm broke as hell. You know what I mean? But who cares? We eat. We got electricity. We got internet. I'm talking to people all over the world on a daily basis. Like we are still up big, but our system and our area and our mindset are so negative. Like we don't focus on what's winning and what's going good for us. We've been designed to just think about the negative, and we work, 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 so we can just have a beer on the weekend. And like that ain't it, man. You should like
Mm.
we're not living every day. We're just alive, like going through it. And like I just try to get people to understand, like your entire life can be flipped upside down tomorrow. Whether a kid dies, God forbid that ever happens, but it happens quite often. You know, if someone's kid dies, your spouse dies, your grandmother, yourself, like literally at the drop of a hat, any moment of any day, your life could change and get way worse than what it is. So why don't we just stop complaining about what's going wrong and just look at what's going right? Because a lot of shit is still going very good for us. We just have lost sight of it.
I think it's hard to do that though. You know, it's unfortunate. You know, it's like the analogy of your parents tell you the stove is hot until you touch it. You don't. It sucks.
You
It's
know,
hard to know though. You know, and you're like, damn, this shit's hot. Well, yeah. Well, now I
yeah,
learned, right? But it's like it's like how many of us, and you said it earlier. You said it's cliche as hell, but the best place to start is rock bottom. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, it's hitting our head up against the wall and going, all right, well that didn't work, or you know, in your case, something even life threatening. And it's you know, we just throw this stuff around like it's cliche, but it's like no, like at some point, like you felt like you were gonna die, and maybe even wanted to die at some point, you know, with what was going on, and it's like, so I could see how, in light of that, you want to live your life differently, and you want to actually make it count for something because you've encountered something that, I mean, I don't know, like how many, and I say this very purposefully, how many people get the opportunity to come up against death and beat it?
it's rare. And it's I think even myself, like I take it for granted a lot because there's plenty of days I spend around just laying around doing nothing. And like you said, like it's and in all honesty, like everyone can't have this mindset and just bop around like SpongeBob and not be a cog in the wheel because in order for
Uh-oh. Aaron just cut out. It looks like, luckily, he can just use the link and get back on. But
We lost. We'll come right back.
yeah, looks like it's me and you
Yeah.
for a little bit, bud.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is why I didn't want to fill you in too much on his story because it's awesome. It's cool how our paths kind of linked up. We've known each other for many years, but it's been a really cool journey watching that.
So he almost died. I just caught that, and he didn't really talk about it, but he almost died, and you guys were in the forest or something?
Oh yeah, like I think I don't remember at what time this was because he was in and out of the hospital so much, but it was right before he had to go back in for something, and he's actually one of the people that got me into taking pictures.
Oh,
He
he
had a camera.
was. No
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah. And so we were out just taking pictures
welcome
of
welcome to Cecil County Wi-Fi.
some. Yeah, we were out taking pictures of some trees and stuff up in PA, and like he was having trouble getting around, and I was like, oh, you're good. Like let's just like I thought we were on the recovery end where he needed to like start you know pushing himself a little bit to gain some progress. So I'm like, yeah, we're good. Let's walk down to the water. And yeah, my understanding of where Aaron was at and Aaron's understanding of where he was at was completely different. And it was not like
Yeah,
hey, we need to start pushing a little bit to get down there. It was like, hey man, I need to be in the hospital right now, and we didn't know. So
yeah. I think I ended up going the next
yeah,
day.
yeah,
So like that was December 2019, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah.
So after we did that, because we did, I think, early December, I went to the hospital. It was before COVID was a
Right.
thing. I think that was early COVID because I came home and I had 3 drain plugs connected to my lungs, and I had to drain fluid out of my lungs, and it was like concrete coming out of my lungs for like the next 4 months. I think I had
I
drains.
remember driving around and you saying, "Hey, I just need to go get my lungs drained. I'll be good." Like, it's just why I'm trouble. And I'm like,
Yeah, like they were just filling
yeah,
up with fluid.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I think I went into the hospital a couple days later. I had 25% lung functionality,
yeah,
and I lived like that so that was for 8 months. I lived with 25% lung capacity. Like my breathe, like I didn't go up my stairs in my house for 2 years probably, from because I had shingles and I couldn't like I had like no feeling in my left leg, but my breathing was like this for 2 years. I was just
Oh my God.
that's all I could do to breathe. But I accepted that as my normal. That's like I was trying to do burpees on the baseball field like that.
yeah. It was
Oh
rough,
my
man.
God.
Yeah,
Ooh.
this was only like 2 months after I bought a camera, my first camera.
Yeah, you saw the Canon T7,
Yeah,
man.
we were
Straight
out
out the box.
trying to trying to take photos of anything.
No idea what we were doing. We didn't even know how to use Lightroom or
No,
Photoshop
we
at the
watched
time.
like 6 Peter McKinnon videos, and we were like, "Yeah, it's cool, man. This is me now. This is my life."
Yeah, this is what we're doing
Six
forever. Man, look how far you've come.
six Peter McKinnon videos.
Yeah,
That was good. Um,
That was our guy.
yeah,
I think he's still the guy. I don't think anyone's taken him over.
Yeah, he's a cool
yeah.
dude.
Peter's still crushing it, but
Yeah, I mean, he's got 1 million YouTube subscribers, and I don't know what that equates to in dollar signs, but let's just.
5 million. He's got 5 million.
Oh, so wrong. I stand correct.
He's killing. Like I haven't watched one of his videos in probably a
Yeah,
year.
it's
I can't. I mean, the harsh reality of life is I haven't even really broke out my camera in a year. Other than kids sports, I haven't got to do
yeah,
photography in a while.
it's definitely it's
It's
been
crazy how busy I am for not even having a job.
right. That's how I feel. I
Sucks.
don't even really work, and I'm so busy.
I've had a paycheck in 4 years and still working my ass off.
So
Yeah, it's nuts.
tell me a little bit about that, right? So I'm assuming this thing is a nonprofit, right? And so
Yeah,
you're relying
yeah.
on, you know, partners.
I get donations from the community members. Like I just pretty much, whore myself out to the community, begging for money, asking. And like we set like when I do a baseball thing, like we'll have like a $10 donation if they can, but we don't push it. Um, we always, this is year 2 now. We've never been late on a bill, so that's saying a lot in my opinion. And we don't fundraise. Like we're small with our biggest donation we ever got was $1,000. So like we got it like we hit it hard to like, raise money, and we're nickel and diamond here throughout, but it works. Like we've got us to where we are now.
Do you do you
We
have
have some
a
bigger things coming up, and I think it's only going to continue to grow.
do you have a link or something that for donating? Do you have like a website or something?
Yeah, it's on. Actually we just redid our websites, and we redid our whole
Cool.
facility, and we just redid our websites too. So I'll text the link to it so you guys can see it. But
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna say
it's
we
it's
can add
it's
that to this.
it's going better than I thought it could ever imagine. Like we actually like it's funny. Like the guy, my business partners, who kind of just help guide me, and if things get tight, they hook me up. But they were talking about as we prepare, we're getting bigger donations. They're like, Aaron, like what's your plans with this moving forward? And I was like, guys, honestly, I didn't expect to live this long. Like I wasn't thinking of my 5-year plan was to just not die.
mm,
And now I'm trying to now I gotta like I've been so healthy, like I gotta come up with a 5-year plan for a business. When I literally didn't plan on living like after my second transplant. Like I do everything month to month because I don't know what next month is gonna be like for me. Like I literally like my medicine or my liver starts to reject, and I'm back in the hospital. Like there's just so many things that can go wrong. I've I don't plan long term ever, but the things have been going so well. Like I gotta start planning long term. So it's just a new challenge for me to like, and it makes me nervous because you know tomorrow, like things could hit the fan tomorrow, the harsh reality of my life. But I gotta stop living in fear of. I guess it kind of is a fear of not living the next 5 years and just plan for the next five. And if I'm not around, have a backup plan so someone can, pick up right where I left off. And that's kind of where we've been at now, to why I've updated the website and like really starting to like and have people in place so where when things do go south or when I want to step away, they can just run with it, because like you just like I just don't know. So I've never had to think about it, but it's been fun planning for the future now for the first time in 7 years. But it adds like an extra level of like anxiety for me because it's nothing I've ever really dealt with. But just like everything else, just adjust and deal with it.
Here's what's fascinating to me is that not only did you start all of this in the circumstances that were very, I don't know, grim and dull and saddening and disappointing, right? Like, not only did you do that, but then you did it during arguably one of the toughest economic times to start something like this, where people are coming in person, which was COVID. And I find that to be like, you literally took every single hardship and odd, and you were like, great, let's do it. I mean, people like
Yeah, it was. People thought I was really nuts for doing it during COVID.
yeah, right. And I just think about that. I'm like, man, not only did this guy beat the odds, but then he did all of this. It's insanity.
And I think what the best, I never like COVID never really was a thing for me because I was quarantined and stuck in the house anyway from my own sickness. Like I didn't to like the only time COVID sucked for me is when I couldn't really understand it. Like I didn't understand why I couldn't have visitors in the hospital for the months I was in there. Like I couldn't see my family, so I was in there by myself, and that's the only real thing that I've dealt with directly for COVID was not being able to see people in the hospital. I didn't really fully understand how bad it was in like the pandemic because I was sick anyway. Like I was sleeping 20 hours a day. And then in July of 2020 is when I went into the hospital and was there for the next, 2-3 months. So when I came home, like it was kind of like COVID. I mean, I guess it was a very serious thing. Like I don't want to like discredit COVID because it was terrible and a lot of people lost their lives, but it didn't register as like a obstacle for me with growing pops and growing my business is because I didn't really have to deal with it outside of the hospital, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't, I was aware of it and I followed all the protocols that was required by the state to open up and do everything, but it didn't inhibit me because it just wasn't in the front of my brain. Like COVID was always on the back burner because of everything else that happened. So I guess maybe like my ignorance of COVID allowed me to pursue it. Like, so I guess it kind of worked out for me because I wasn't afraid of it like everyone else was because I was going through so much more.
Yeah.
I was like, everything I've been through, I was like, COVID ain't taking me out. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be fine. Because like even now, like I'm very high risk to get COVID, and knock on wood, like my doctors think I'm nuts, and they hate that I do so much in the public. And I wear my mask if I have to fly or if I'm in like a really crowded area, but I'm so high risk for it. But I haven't even had the vaccine, and I've never been officially tested positive for COVID, but I get my blood work done once a week, and my antibodies for COVID are higher than people with the vaccine. So my doctors don't push it on me, thankfully. But it's just like COVID just hasn't, directly affected my life in a way where it's had me like second guessing anything I've done. So it's never been an obstacle. So I guess that's pretty rare these days, though, because COVID's wreaked havoc on a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, man. It's just like people like yourself who literally have defeated the odds and then continue to seek out opportunities to do it again listen to your story. Obviously I'm inspired, number one, but then number two, I have this like affinity towards, I don't know, you going out on that proverbial limb, I guess, and actually doing the things that you're talking about and not getting comfortable. And it almost makes me in a lot of ways, and I think this is a good thing, almost question, my own decisions in my own life, and to really think like, am I really doing these things? Like, am I really trying to live out these opportunities that I have in my life to, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, but to actually seek discomfort, not for the sake of being uncomfortable, but for the sake of growth, right? And I think there's a difference.
Oh yeah, for
Just
sure.
doing hard shit to do hard shit is I think maniacal in a lot of ways. But doing hard shit as a means to grow and as an avenue to get somewhere, I think could really be helpful and maybe the thing that a lot of us need. I don't know, to spark something inside of us, because if you're anything like me, it's like I don't really get creative until my back's up against the wall, and then I get really fucking creative.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean,
Yeah, Brandon.
there's no, there. I mean, there's so much to be said on that topic, though. Like I don't think anybody can make progress in anything without a certain level of discomfort. I don't think that there's ever time, continuing to use the reference of CrossFit, right? If you come in and you continue to do the same workout every day, or you finish a workout and you're not in a lot of pain or you're not uncomfortable,
Mm,
then you probably haven't gotten better at anything.
mm,
If you come in and you lift the same weight every time that you do something, you're probably not going to get stronger. You have to test those limits of failure, and then sometimes you have to hit failure in order to continue to grow. And I've said this to Aaron for years, and it's pretty much the mission statement of my business is that you're either progressing or you're regressing. There is no such thing as gressing.
Ain't no aggressive.
The gressing is not, yeah, gressing is not a word. You are either progressing or you are regressing. And if you are one of those people that comes in here, and a lot of my members hate this, is I just want to kind of like stay where I'm at. I just want to keep moving and like blah blah blah. Yeah, but in order to do that, you are fighting Father Time, so you have to progress. You have to make progress because time is making you regress. You are going the wrong way on the escalator. And in order
mm.
to do that, you have to work harder in order to still make progress. And that's what people don't kind of understand. And it's the importance of understanding that discomfort and being uncomfortable is so important to life, and it's so important to getting where you're at. That's I mean, if anybody takes anything from this whole podcast, right? This is why I wanted to bring Aaron on here, and this is why I wanted to be on here as well. Is that if if you're somebody and you look at the cool shit that Aaron's doing, or you look at the cool opportunities that I've had in my life, know that most of the things and the times that I've spent in the last 10 years doing this, I have been uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? I have been in a lot of discomfort. And there is a lot of time that it's spent making sacrifices and putting a smile on during those painful moments that make people think that you're not in pain, but you really are. You look at these elite athletes in comparison. You look at these elite athletes in the middle of one of the craziest workouts at the CrossFit Games, and you look at them and you go, man, they don't even look like they're suffering, right? And inside, they're hurting the same way you are on your first workout when you come into the CrossFit game or into a CrossFit gym, but they have just learned how to put on a better face and continue to go while they're feeling that certain pain. And I think that that's a misconception that happens in life. So you see Aaron bopping around with this smile on his face, and you get that smile or that attitude fucked up with the fact that you think that his past wasn't that troubled. You think, oh, how could you be smiling so much, or how could you be so happy? It must not have been as bad as you're saying it was. No, we've just chosen other routes, and because of that, the growth is able to happen. And you do get those brief moments of really cool shit, right? Like you
Yeah.
get those moments where you get to sit back and go, look what I've created for this community of children. Look what I'm able to do now for this community and give these kids something that they never were going to have otherwise. In my life, I could just sit back and go, man, look at the places that camera has taken me. How crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's like
so
um with the kids too, like they're just people in general. I think there's to be labeled a try hard in today's society is bad. Or not, it's not bad, but it's perceived as bad because, to try and fail scares a lot of people, especially young people. Because if you think of like everything they do is recorded from sporting events, every play, every strikeout, everything's recorded. So it's they're afraid to try because they're afraid
Mm,
to fail. So it's easier to, and you probably see it as even in CrossFit, like, oh, I wasn't even trying. That's the most punkest thing to say, and that's just your own self-esteem talking you out of your failed at being the best or whatever you're pursuing. And I think that's what people kind of are drawn to us, is the fact like we're not afraid to fail, therefore we'll try anything. Like we're going to try it, we're going to do it, and if we fail, oh well. And I think that's what most people need to, stop letting the comfort inhibit their growth. And it's because they're scared to step out of the box and their daily routine and cycle. Like humans are very routine. Like we thrive for it, we feed for it. But the only way to really continue to grow is to break that routine, to break your own cycle. And it doesn't happen until you start being honest and real with yourself. And I think that's where a lot of, from adults to young people, is they don't have the self confidence in themselves to be real with themselves. So they're still trying to convince themselves on their own character traits rather than, accepting their character flaws and working at them. And I think that's the growth, is like you see it on social media all the time. People will share, "Oh, I'm such an empath," or "I'm such this, I'm so that." They're sharing things that are like trying to, and it comes off as they're trying to sell people on the type of person they are. And I think that's the corniest thing ever. Like, I'm not here to sell, to convince you that I'm any type of way or any type of person. I'm just being myself. And by being me, it's inspired others. Like, I don't, like, even through my sickness, through everything that I've done, like, I don't think it's anything special, because it's just me being myself. And I think that's a lot of this world, is people are just afraid to be themselves. And that's what differentiates us from them, is we know who we are. We know our flaws. We're aware of our weaknesses. We also know our strengths. So we're able to maneuver in ways to where, we're not afraid to show our flaws, because we're so confident in our strengths. And we find people who, if we lack in an area, you just find someone who can, pick up the strength in that area, if that makes sense. But I think that's where a lot of people screw up, is that we have our egos, and ego doesn't allow you to admit, man, I suck at this, let me get some help. And especially on the men's side of things, like, it's hard as a man to ask another man for help. But if I don't ask people for help, I'm not alive today, and I'm darn sure not doing the things that I'm doing. And it's because, like, and that's, like, I revert back to my cancer. When you get your dick chopped off, you get your ego chopped off with it. You know what I mean? It's not like I can't join any pissing contests, because we can't all sit down in a circle and piss. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have an ego. And when you can put your ego aside, no one can really fuck with you. Like, you literally, like, it's like, "Oh, Aaron, you're such a bitch." Okay, great. You know what I mean? It's like, you see that all the time. People will come at you with all kinds of nonsense and, like, trying to break your character. But if you're not disrespecting me or putting my hands on me, like, I'm not worried about what you say. But I think that's where people are so screwed up, as because we're so obsessed with other people's opinion, to where it makes us fearful to try anything, because we're scared what they're going to say when we fail. But when you don't care what, like, if I literally couldn't care less about anyone's opinion of me. And it makes you so powerful, if because you're not doing things for their approval. I do things just because I think to my soul that it's the right thing to do. And I get in so many arguments and with people, and there's like, "Oh, Aaron, you're just being dramatic." It's not that I'm dramatic. It's I stand on my principles. And if it's it doesn't matter if it's a small thing or a big thing. My principles don't sway. So if you do something that's, even it's meaningless, and it's not hurting anyone, but it's against my principles, I'm calling you on it, because I think you have to. If you don't take care of every small little issue that you have, grow to be big issues. And I think that's a lot of the issues with society, is like, we let the small things that, don't align up with our core principles and everything, just get swept under the rug. But you sweep enough shit under the rug, it's going to get noticed. Like, I'm not putting anything under the rug, whether it's the smallest thing or the biggest thing. We're dealing with it. We're facing everything head on. There's no avoidance. And I think we get people, especially young people, they have a lot of avoidance tendencies. Whether it's in school, they'll lash out and act bad because they're scared to read aloud, or they'll self-sabotage themselves because they're avoiding their own character flaws. You got to face that shit head on, be aware of it, and be like, "Yeah, I suck at this, but I'm going to dominate you in every way possible this way. And it's going to be so much better that it doesn't matter that you beat me in this one tiny little area." And I think that's, what helps the most, is when you can, like, really assess yourself, be real with yourself, and then you can move and grow. But until you can be honest with yourself, you're really just spinning wheels.
Man, that's phenomenal. Dude, Aaron, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you sharing your story, man. I appreciate the courage it takes to talk about some of these things because, I mean, they're freaking heavy. They're tough, man. And I'm grateful for that. And I think there's a lot of.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot of things. I always say this, man. If nobody listened to this but my mom, I would still do it because of the fact that I learned so much and I gather so much just selfishly from having people like yourself on that are incredibly inspiring, that are and I don't say this like in a cheesy way, but incredibly motivating to just like look at my own life and like level the fuck up, because it's like, man, there's a lot you can gather and there's a lot you can learn from some of the parables, if you will, that you've shared. So I'm grateful for that, man, and I appreciate your time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Brandon, anything you want to add?
Blessed for the opportunity. I think this is where the growth and change happens. Is to have conversations and not via text message. Like, we need to talk more as people. That's how we grow. Like, communicate and understand. Like, not communicate just to spread your own bullshit. Communicate to understand other people's bullshit and then grow.
Yeah, man. No, I'll just end with it. The power of communication and the power of making friends it's a huge thing. It's the ability to make connections in life and reach out and have interactions with other human beings so that you can not only learn about them, but how you can learn how to apply that to your own life it's invaluable. And in a nutshell, I've been blessed and fortunate enough to meet Micah through some times that we've been able to share together that allowed us to get onto this podcast, and just the ability I have to be able to make some recommendations to him. I'm very fortunate to know Aaron. I'm fortunate enough to know him before all of it happened, and then be able to see everything on the other side, and to kind of be able to express and show how that's affected my life, and how his story has kind of inspired me has been insane. So I mean, you're talking about somebody who was there at the beginning of me wanting to open an affiliate, and also taught me and got me into shooting a camera. It's a no-brainer on the fact that I wanted to be able to give him a platform to tell his story, because it's something that's so inspiring. So I hope that more people, and I'm more people than just the people in our town that know about this are able to listen to this and just take something from it. Whether it be the fact that you are struggling with just a small thing, and it feels crippling to you. Just know and understand that there's people out there that have been through pretty hard shit, and they're still trucking, and they're not just surviving, but they're thriving. So there's always hope. There's always hope in tomorrow. There's always hope in today. So if we can keep that at the forefront of our mind, I think the whole
True that.
good. So live your life happy, forgive people that have fucked with you, and all is good.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, let that shit. Like, there's so many people that just live with regret and like hold shit against people. Like, let that shit go.
No doubt.
Aaron, I'll put your link in the bio. If those listening are in any way inspired by this story or want to understand more, you can check out the link in the bio. And if you want to consider maybe partnering with Aaron and maybe some of his initiatives, you can also do that via the link.
Help the kids, man. Help the kids.
Oh yeah, appreciate it. But even if they just want to talk or just have an unbiased ear, like, I'd love, my inbox is open, and I probably help talk to 10 to 15 different people a day. Like, I'm public on everything. Like, everything is open book. If anyone listening needs some help or just wants to talk about anything and get an unbiased opinion, or just be told, like, you're being a pussy, like, let's go. Like, I'm here for it. I'm here. Like, it's like any human being that I can help. Like, I will do whatever I can to make sure I can help them. Like, I truly believe God left me on this earth to help people, and that's the passion I'm pursuing. Like, not like I don't want to go any longer, but didn't take anyone's time. But when I was sick, I went to heaven twice, and God told me, Aaron, you can come to heaven if you want, but I'm not done with you yet. And like, I firmly believe that really happened to me, and that's my mission, my purpose. Like, I'm sent from God to help people. And does that sound arrogant? Hell yeah, but I don't care. I am arrogant, but I'm also overly confident in my ability to help people, and that's all I want to do, is help every single person I can.
Thanks for listening to Brute Strength Podcast. As always, you can head over to brutestrengthtraining.com to connect with us and access the links and resources mentioned in this podcast. That's brutestrengthtraining.com for exclusive content and giveaways just for you, our podcast listeners. Consider subscribing so you never miss out. That's all for this episode. See you next time.